WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, more than half of families living with childhood cancer diagnoses say their top financial stressor is paying for groceries. We talked to former NFL coach Tom Coughlin about why his Pediatric Cancer Foundation is putting food insecurity in sharp focus. Then, a local charity formed in response to Hurricane Katrina celebrates a milestone in giving. The St. Augustine Fire Chief explains how the grants and new gear are helping first responders in the ancient city. And exploring the mysteries of Saturn and spotting it in the night sky are both easier today than ever before. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says there has been a shooting at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Dallas. Writing online, Noem says there are fatalities and injuries. She also says the shooter is dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to speak today at the UN General Assembly in New York. He's expected to discuss the issue of Ukrainian children illegally deported to Russia. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports.
Zelensky has said in the past week that he wants to talk about the thousands of Ukrainian children that Russian forces have taken from occupied territories since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. Speaking yesterday alongside Trump, Zelensky also nudged European countries to stop trading with Russia.
We support, Mr. President, your idea, and I want to discuss it, how to stop some countries from Europe, how to buy Russian oil and gas.
Zelensky said that Russian President Vladimir Putin has no interest in ending the war on Ukraine. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
Big tech company Amazon is in court this week in Seattle. The Federal Trade Commission is accusing Amazon of tricking people into signing up for its Prime subscription, and the FTC alleges it trapped them with a confusing cancellation process. From member station KUOW, Joshua McNichols reports.
The law Amazon's accused of violating is the Restore Online Shoppers Confidence Act. It requires clear and conspicuously displayed terms of service, like monthly charges. But Amazon lawyer Moez Kaba says that law is vague. Imagine, he said, you're driving down the highway and you see a sign that doesn't tell you the exact speed limit, but instead tells you to drive reasonably. How would you know if you're violating the speed limit? The FTC's lawyers say Amazon definitely knew it was violating the law, noting that it had lawyers in every key meeting. For NPR News, I'm Joshua McNichols in Seattle.
Amazon is a financial supporter of NPR. Late-night host Jimmy Kimmel has returned to the air. ABC suspended him for several days after members of the Trump administration got angry over his comments following the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Influential podcaster Joe Rogan often calls for free speech, and yesterday, Rogan warned conservatives against efforts to cut it off.
The problem is the companies, if they're being pressured by the government, so if that's real, and if people on the right are like, yeah, go get them, oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this because this will be used on you.
President Trump wrote online yesterday that the White House was told ABC canceled Kimmel's show. Trump is hinting he might take legal action against ABC. This is NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's now 9:04. St. Augustine is adjusting its Nights of Lights plan after requesting over $1 million from St. Johns County, but only receiving about $850,000. The City Commission this week reviewed a plan that would cut back on extra bathrooms. The original plan was to add 116 porta potties in a parking lot, but the city will cut that down to 50. The $122,000 spent on portable restrooms is still a big jump from the $3,000 the city spent last year. Overall, this year's Nights of Lights is expected to cost more than $1.3 million in public money, which is up from less than $500,000 last year. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp dropped Game 1 in the best-of-3 International League Championship Series. The Jumbo Shrimp lost in extra innings 5-4 to the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders last night. It's a must-win Game 2 for the Jumbo Shrimp tonight. First pitch is at 7:05 at VyStar Ballpark. It's going to be a taste of summer for the next few days here in Northeast Florida. We'll have summer-like weather with near-record high temperatures and daily isolated afternoon and evening storms both today and tomorrow. Highs today will be in the mid-90s for inland areas, and it'll be in the mid-90s all the way to the coast. Overnight, we'll have lows that will drop down into the low to mid-70s. Highs tomorrow expected to reach the upper 80s to lower 90s. Right now, we've got temperatures in the 70s in Jacksonville.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, food insecurity for families dealing with childhood cancer. We talked to the former Jags coach Tom Coughlin about why his foundation has chosen to tackle the issue now. Later, a local charity for first responders celebrates 20 years of financing firefighters and a $100 million milestone. But first, of all the hardships of dealing with a childhood cancer diagnosis, some of the most challenging are also the most mundane, including the cost of groceries. Here to talk about the problem of food insecurity, I'm joined by J-Fund Foundation President and former coach Tom Coughlin. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
We're also joined by his daughter and foundation CEO, Keli Coughlin. Good morning, Keli.
Good morning.
And finally, we're joined by Sydney Jackson and Aundrey Jackson Jr., parents of 6-year-old leukemia patient Saige. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being here. Sydney, first of all, I'm sorry that you're facing this issue as a family. How is your daughter Saige doing? And just tell us a little bit about her.
Yes. She's doing well. We just actually we spent 39 days in the hospital recently. Yesterday was our first day back together as a family. It was a very, very rough month. I think it's easy to say that this past month alone has been just as hard as the whole year since her diagnosis. We are very grateful for all the help that we've received from the J-Fund and just everybody that has been able to support us. Saige is everybody who meets her. There's just this light, this glow about her. It's just undeniable. As her mother, I know it's very evident and obvious to me, but it's also evident and obvious to every single person that has met her throughout this journey. And they just love her. They adore her. She's famous for her hugs. Everybody knows Saige for her hugs. Just thank you so much for having us. We're just happy to be here.
Well, we're so happy, and we're happy to have you and your other child, Luca's here today. Saige is out in the green room. So she has been diagnosed with something that's called B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is abbreviated BALL.
Yes, BALL. Yes.
BAL. Okay, and so obviously that has been, a difficult experience for you and your family, but it has also included a lot of hospital visits, a lot of procedures and treatments, and all of that is something that takes time from family and it takes resources. Can you speak to a little bit just about the impact that it's had on the family unit, the family finances?
The impact has been insurmountable, just from regular things as finances, but also our marriage. Like you said, being together as a family, we are a very close-knit family. We are everything that we have. We're always together. Throughout this, our separation has been the most we've ever been separated. A lot of times it's him or I that are staying in the hospital, and then we switch back and forth so that we can still be with the other kids and they still have some type of normalcy, because it's important that they have that. But yes, it has been the hardest, easily the hardest thing that we've ever experienced as a family and continue to experience it. But I think any good parents would do what we're doing, and you just kind of step up to the plate and you be what you have to be for her. And that's just what we're doing as a family, the best way that we can.
Aundrey, we mentioned Lucas here and Saige. You have another daughter, the oldest daughter, Honora, who's in school today. But you are you own and operate your own business.
Yes,
And Sydney's a full-time mom taking care of the kids. How has the impact of this diagnosis changed just how you're able to work and your business?
It comes with a lot of sacrifice because a lot of times, as being the breadwinner of a family, you have to almost choose between, do I want to spend more time with my family or do I need to like pay such bills? So trying to navigate that to where I can be there for my family emotionally and support them, but also support them financially as well, is pretty difficult to do.
And how are you making those choices just on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, just day to day. I have a very flexible schedule, so I can maneuver
You're
my
a
clients.
barber?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can, like, a lot of my clientele, they understand and they allow me the flexibility to maneuver my appointments to tailor it to my family.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there is some flexibility in that schedule, but those are difficult choices, Keli, Coughlin. How often do you hear stories like, the Jacksons?
Too much, unfortunately. We know that of the families that we serve in the Jacksonville area, that 72% of those families, at least one parent has to take unpaid leave from work. So, we heard about the example just now of when it's your own business. Obviously, if you're not there, you're not bringing in the money. But the same thing happens regardless of the role. Almost always, at the same time that your expenses are going up, not just the medical expenses, but traveling back and forth to the hospital, needing to eat out because you're sitting there by your child's side at the hospital, and the child, gets their meal, but you have to take care of yourself as well. There's all these added expenses at the same time that their income is going down because they just need to be there with their child. So it really can create a financial crisis for most families.
Coach Coughlin, this is a story that is familiar to you,
It is.
but also one that is dear to your heart in terms of the origin story of the J Foundation. Can you just remind us a little bit about who Jay was, how you got to know his story, and why you decided to start the foundation?
I can do that, but I also want to say right off the bat that listening to the Jacksons, to their family story, this is the story of the beginning of the J Fund, right here. What the families go through, standing on the sideline. I took the Boston College head coaching job in 1991. My strong safety was a young man by the name of Jay McGillis. Jay McGillis was a tough, hard-nosed kid that, loved to play the game. Great teammate, great kid. We came back from a game. Matter of fact, it was in Syracuse. We came back from the Syracuse game, which was like our 9th game of the year. The trainers came to me and said, "Coach, I don't think Jay's going to be able to play this week." And I said, "What? He's not going to? Why not?" And he had swollen glands, had a temperature, a lot of things of that nature. And it did not turn out to be, a sore throat or a cold or something. It was leukemia, and a ravaging form of leukemia. Jay was gone by July 3rd, 1992, and he had a cord blood transplant that did not work. But I sat with my wife, Judy, and I sat with the McGillis family as they went through this, and the story is the same story. The siblings all come back. They might have been some in college. They come back to be with the sick child. The parents stop working. The parents no longer can function, as they normally had. Dad was a salesman. Mom was a teacher. They just drop everything and they come to the bedside of the sick child. Along about the spring of the year, one of my linebackers, a young man by the name of Mike Panos, came to me and said, "Coach, we have to do something for the McGillis family." And I looked at him and I said, "I don't know, what are you talking about, Mike?" And he said just what I said. They no longer go to work. They just go to sit by the bedside of their sick child. They're there to try to reinforce with the idea of hope their siblings, their family, the sick child. So we devised a way. In those days, the players would do a maximum lift in the spring of the year. They would bench, they would squat, they would power clean, they would do these things. So they went out in the community and got pledges for money. And then when we did the end of the year exercises, they went out and collected their money. And at halftime of the spring game, we were able to give the McGillis family $50,000, which at that time was a sizable amount of money. So that's the idea. Judy and I were so close to this and watched this take place. And we said, look, if we ever get a chance to give back, it's going to be in the name, the image, the likeness, the spirit of Jay McGillis. So when I came to Jacksonville as the head coach, I came in 94. Our first season was 95. I didn't get to to start the J Fund until the spring of 96, but we never forgot about that. So our very first idea was a golf tournament, and we raised, I think, $36,000, and we thought we were doing really well. We did. But that was 30 years ago. And over 30 years, we've helped over 6,700 families to the tune of over $34 million. So the mission is to be there for families who have a child with cancer. And we're there in financial, practical, emotional, you name it. And the way that that Keli has operated and the wonderful job she's done is the social workers are our source of information. And Keli's constantly with them. And as they direct her to what the needs are currently, she devises programs to implement the idea that if this is what families are going through, then let us help. It's sibling programs, it's parent programs, it's mom programs, dad programs. It's bringing people together and paying their bills. I mean, what we do is we want to keep a roof over their heads. We want to put food on the table. We want dad and mom to be able to come home and at least in that environment, be family-like, to take some of the stress away from them so that they can be there with their sick child. And that's what has developed over the years with the J Fund. And thank God for our supporters. The community becomes totally enhanced in what we're doing, not because of me or Keli, but because of the mission. It's the mission. It's to be there. September being Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. This is the time when we want the awareness factor to be out there about what these families go through. And all you have to do is look at the faces. Look at mom's face, and you see it. You see the compassion, the love, but the feeling of, we want to be able to help. We want to be able to solve these problems, including the child totally recovered. And that's why we say that we are there throughout the illness and beyond. We're there to see them through the whole operation.
If you're just joining us, we are talking to Coach Tom Coughlin and Keli Coughlin about tackling food insecurity for families living with childhood cancer diagnoses. You can join the conversation if you have comments or questions by calling 904-549-2937 or emailing firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also reach out on social media. Keli, I want to ask you about what Coach was just saying in terms of you working with social workers as sort of a conduit to the families. Can you explain how they interact with the families and what sort of information they glean from those interactions, and then how you work to translate those into actual programs?
Sure. The social workers really serve as the go-between for the Tom Coughlin J Fund. And I think one of the reasons why we have been able to grow in size and scope and really address different issues is because from day one, we have been really looked at as part of the team that's supporting the childhood cancer patients and their families. So while there's the medical piece, that's obviously the most important piece, we have been intimately working with social workers, doctors, nurses, and learning about what the challenges are. We started off, as my dad said, really focused on the financial piece because we knew that families weren't working and that they needed to be provided some relief of stress and to assure that they had the normalcy of going home to their home and not worrying about whether the lights were going to be on. But we also learned over the years about the emotional toll that it really plays on the whole family. And that when a child is diagnosed, it's not just that child, it's the whole family that is diagnosed. And so we have been able to do things like provide the families an opportunity to just have fun and what we call a timeout from cancer, where they can be together and make memories and enjoy each other. But we've also addressed the stresses that caregivers go through and tried to educate them. We've recognized that siblings often, their lifestyle changes drastically. They're worried about their sibling. Life is not the same as it was. Maybe they can't do all the activities that they used to do because mom and dad just can't manage it all. Maybe they spend more time at the neighbor's or grandma's house. These kids are affected, so we do programs for them. And then we, of course, address the patients themselves as well and have opportunities for them to come together with others that are going through similar experiences and can relate to each other. So really shining a light to what the needs are and continually addressing them is what we're real proud of. Is always listening to what we hear from families, but also what we hear from the medical teams about just all the effects that this disease has.
And when did you learn or become aware of the element of sort of food insecurity? Because I think that we don't always think of the different ways that people need to acquire food when they're in a crisis like that can actually become more costly. I mean, you sort of mentioned having to eat at a restaurant or having to eat at the hospital, but sometimes kids who have a diagnosis have special nutrition needs, or
Right.
their palate changes because they're having treatment that affects how things taste. And so there's a lot of ways that it can affect just your grocery bill.
Right. So we have started to hear from families when they were requesting support for their bills that they could also really use money for groceries. And so we started a supermarket gift card program where the social workers had like some emergency gift cards that they could hand out if a family was getting out of the hospital and didn't have dinner for that night, or a family was there in the clinic and expressed the fact that they didn't have a refrigerator full of food. But as time went on, we realized that it was a more significant problem. We all know that prices are high right now with groceries. We've all seen our food bills go up. So we really kind of tried to lean into that. And so we have, grown that supermarket gift card program. We've done some special shopping sprees. We're starting to deliver meals to the hospital for the caregivers so that we can assure that they have a good meal and don't have to spend their money to do that. But an AP poll showed that 53% of families facing childhood cancer say that groceries are one of their top financial stressors. And here in Jacksonville, with the families that we serve, 32% of them say that they've struggled putting food on the table.
So how does this area compare to other areas when it comes to that experience of food insecurity if you're dealing with a childhood cancer diagnosis?
I think it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
We serve the New York, New Jersey market as well, and we're seeing and hearing the same things there. That these families, they just need basic needs. They need to assure that there's food on the table, and like you said, there's the general need for all of us to have nutrition. But when you have a sick child, there are special requirements. Often they need a caloric level intake to be able to maintain their weight or put weight back on. Their tastes change over time. And of course, when your child's sick and they don't feel good, if they want mac and cheese or if they want, nuggets from McDonald's or whatever, you want to be able to do that for them.
Yeah. Sydney, is that something that you've seen with Saige in terms of, you have other children that you're preparing meals for, but, as Keli says, when your child is sick, feeding them is sort of foundational. It's something that every parent wants to be able to do to give them some sort of comfort. Is that something that you have seen just in terms of like having to either make special foods or buy special stuff?
Absolutely. 100%. Right now, she actually has an NJ feeding tube, even at home. She's still eating some, but just like you said, getting in, she's lost so much weight this past month. She got very, very sick. We spent weeks in ICU, and she lost a lot of weight. So we got her on the feeding tube, and she's still having issues tolerating and getting what she needs, even when we're putting it straight into her small. It's still not enough.
And an
She,
NJ is something that goes kind of into the lower or
yes.
into the stomach
Yeah,
area.
so an NG goes into the stomach, but an NJ actually goes further because her stomach is so sensitive and goes into the small intestine to kind of help her be able to tolerate more. But even with that, she still has such a hard time tolerating it. She's still getting chemo. Her whole body is, like you said, more than just taste changes. Sometimes she doesn't even want food. It's not even that her favorite things in the world could not even entice her. And then she's not tolerating the feeding that we're giving her, so her body is truly just fighting, and it has been a constant battle, just the eating and the nutrition alone.
And in terms of the sibling component, we discussed a little bit about the role siblings play, and they can be a very healing thing for a child who's going through something like this. But they also have their own needs, they have their own demands, they have their own concerns, and so that component is something that is, as a mom and as a caregiver, can be a whole other layer of things to manage.
Um, yes, it's very hard to manage those. And just being with Sage when I'm in the hospital weeks at a time, and then to go and switch back to your kids that are not sick and they deserve a normal life and they should have that. And they don't have that right now. And then seeing Honora and Saige are truly best friends. And to see my older daughter kind of lose her best friend, it's very hard. And it's hard on Honora every single day, just because a kid can only understand so much what is going on and what they're seeing right in front of their eyes. And as a mom, I can't imagine how hard that is for Nora and Luca as a 3-year-old to see his sister go through this. And why is she looking like this or feeling this way, or how come she doesn't want to play or is too tired or too sick? So, yeah, the constant balance between giving each of them everything that they need is very hard.
And obviously, such an emotional time as a
I'm so
parent.
sorry for
No,
being so emotional.
there's some Kleenex over there. Don't be sorry. But I'm
Right.
curious, as you manage all of this, obviously it is an incredibly difficult emotional experience. So how do you care for yourself, for your relationship? How do you manage that? And is there any outside help that provides relief in that way?
Um, I think the J Fund is a huge help to us alone. Our situation is a little different. I know that grandparents a lot of times step in. Unfortunately, my husband and I both have lost our mom even before we had kids. So that's not an outlet for us. We are really our unit. I'd say my biggest backbone is my husband. There's no way I would be able to be the mom that I am if I didn't have him being the husband and the father that he's being. He would probably be my biggest support in this. There's no way I would be able to do it without him. And I know that what is demanded from him sometimes is different than what's demanded from me. And there's times that he wants to be in the hospital with her, and he can't be because he has to work. And he wants to, but there's areas that that demand different things from us at different times. But it's not always easy, and I know it's not easy on him. But
Yeah, and I mean, I'll ask you the same question, but just sort of from the flip side, Aundrey, how you balance that emotional demand. We talked a little bit about the financial demand, but obviously it's a whole other category of need that the family has from you and that you have yourself.
For sure. Well, I kind of took it in a role to like be the foundation. And a lot of the times I always use the reference that sometimes the foundation doesn't have nobody to lean on. It's always the bottom. So all I have is my family to lean on. So I just knuckle up and just do what I have to do as a man and a husband and a father, and just take on the biggest load that I can to relieve some pressure off of them.
It's exhausting, though.
Very.
Yeah. Coach, I want to ask you, I mean, you yourself have had a recent experience as a full-time caregiver. You lost your wife about 3 years ago, Judy, and she had a long illness, and you took on that role. Um, and I know you've written about it, you've spoken about it, and it sounds like it was a very, very difficult time. But I wonder if, even after all the work that you've done for the J Foundation, if it changed how you viewed, some of the people that you serve as caregivers and the role of caregiver.
Most definitely it did. That's why I wrote the article. The article was intended to bring awareness to those who are caregivers and what they go through. It wasn't to be reflective of me. I didn't want the attention towards me. I wanted people to be aware of what the caregiver goes through. And I was fortunate enough that I could have some help. I had some people that would spend a night, from say 8 till 7 the next morning, of certain days during the week, when I would get a decent night's sleep. But there are many that don't have that opportunity. So that was what I was trying to point out, what the caregivers go through, and that they should be very proud of what they are doing. Many times there is no outlet, just as been said here, for the family, for the caregivers, and that's what we were trying to point out.
Judy, excuse me, Keli, I would ask you about that as well, obviously, and condolences about your mom. It sounds like that was a very difficult illness, and for her and for the family. But I just ask you the same question. I mean, in terms of doing this role with the foundation, being in the role of caregiver, how that may have changed the lens that you view the work you do.
It certainly did. Yeah. I mean, I think, no one can walk in the shoes of these families who have a child with cancer. It's a journey that we try to sympathize with, but we truly don't know. But having the experience with my mom gave me a little view of what it's like to have the role of a caregiver and the stress that brings on. And it really fed a lot into the evolution of our caregiving program at the Tom Coughlin J Fund, recognizing the fact that there's actual scientific data that shows that if caregivers care for themselves, that it can have a positive effect on the patient, and recognizing that nutrition and self-care and relationship nourishment and all those things are very important. So the J Fund, with the help of some generous support, has been able to really expand our caregiver program and build around those pillars and give opportunities for the caregivers, moms and dads and even grandparents, an opportunity to kind of take a minute for themselves, in the hopes that when they return to their child, that they are in a better spot.
Are there any specifics that you can think of, like actual things that you're able to finance or provide, that have in the families that you've dealt with, been that assistance for them?
I think from a caregiver perspective, that we hear, I can think, I was with a mom yesterday who's a single mom who has 5 kids, and one of them has cancer, and she comes to as many of our events as she can, because she needs connection with others that can relate to her situation. And so we hear a lot about that. We also hear from families that share with us that they don't know where they would be living if it wasn't for the J Fund. Whether it's them being able to keep the roof over their head, pay their bills, but also just get through it, knowing that they're not alone.
Yeah. Sydney, in terms of other family connections, I mean, it can be very lonely going through this, and you have a great family, obviously, and a large family. But do you find that helpful? Have you connected with other families that are going through something similar? And, what does that provide you?
Yeah. Absolutely. It has been it's been instrumental throughout this. From the beginning, getting the news, it's world shattering. But to be in a place, we were obviously already on the oncology floor, and around families that some just started their journey, some have been in the journey, some are repeating the journey, and you realize you're not alone. And that moment of finding that news out is very isolating, and it's very easy to feel very, very alone, and that nobody could possibly understand what I'm feeling. And to find there are so many families, and being in this, I realized just how many there are, and how childhood cancer, it's not uncommon. And it is even here, right here in Jacksonville, the families that I've met, and like I said, it's been instrumental in getting through this and being able to confide in those moms that are really experiencing and sometimes going through harder situations. But yes, it's been vital to have those connections. It means more than anything.
And you're obviously right in the thick of this. This is not, this is you're actively getting treatment, and there is, a long road ahead. But do you have any wisdom that you've, gained so far? Anything that you would share with other parents that are going through something similar?
I would tell them that this journey is not linear. And even when things are trending in the right direction and you have some consistency, that things can change, and they can change very quickly. And being adaptable is so important, and to be able to think clearly and not, when that rug gets ripped out from under your feet, to be able to keep your balance and composure. And that's kind of what we've been through this. It has been so rocky. And one week we have a good week, and then next week we're in ICU, and then we get home from the hospital, and then she spikes a fever, so we're back to the ER within an hour, and then we're admitted immediately because she has a fever, so we're automatically there for 2 days, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah. And Aundrey, what now, are you kind of, what stage are you at now? We know that Saige recently was released from the hospital. So does that mean you're sort of back at home as a family? Does life resume a little bit of normalcy, or does it remain just so different?
It's going back to normalcy. Sage is still trying to get her strength up. As you see, she was in a wheelchair, so like she was bedridden for a month because she had a abscess right in her hip. So like it caused her so much pain that she couldn't really walk. So she's slowly starting to build her strength up. And yeah, like all the kids slept in our bed last night. Like
We had feet in our face. We wouldn't have it any other way, though.
But I am glad that my family is together again. It wasn't like I said, we never like slept outside of the same room with each other. Like never slept out of the same bed. So for us to be apart that long, it was really nice to have the whole family together. And the piggyback on what Sydney was saying is that a lot of times you have to look at the small victories. And if I could tell that to any family, like just appreciate the small victories.
Like all sleeping in the same bed.
And
Yeah.
give yourself grace, too.
Yeah.
You have to give yourself grace, because
It's all hard, but we can.
it's not easy for anybody. So it's very important to always give yourself grace through it.
That is the recipe book for caregivers. And the testimony that you just heard, I hope all of us can really understand. You'll not know what these people are going through, but you know the reason now why the J Fund, is so important, and how it's become a life for a lot of us because of looking in the eyes of the family and trying to be there always as a source of hope. And if you understand courage, it's sitting right there. That's what it's all about right there.
It's a good reminder too for when we see people out and about that there are all kinds of people going through all kinds of things, and you really don't know. Well, I certainly wish you the best, and I wish Saige the best. Sydney and Audrey, thank you for being here today. Appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank Thank you so much for having us.
All right. And Tom and Keli Coughlin, thank you so much for being here as well. Thanks for all the work you do with the J Fund.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
us.
Eb.
All right. Up next, a Jacksonville nonprofit born of tragedy celebrates a $100 million milestone benefiting first responders. Welcome back. Well, about 10 years after Hurricane Katrina and an organization that formed in response to it, a locally formed charity is celebrating a milestone. Here to tell us about it is Robin Peters, Executive Director of the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here.
It's great to have you. We're also joined by Chief Carlos Avaliz with the St. Augustine Fire Department. Chief, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you again. So I appreciate you being here. Chief, you weren't there for Katrina, but I mean, it was a moment that many of us well remember, a struggle faced not just by residents in New Orleans, but by the first responders that were trying to save lives and to get in there. You've experienced certainly some large-scale issues in St. Augustine during storms. What have you learned about those kinds of responses as a first responder? What's needed, and what limitations are in place?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things to take away from it. It is difficult now looking at it from the administrator's role, when those that are tasked with being there to help people need the help themselves. We've certainly been the recipients of some of that assistance in St. Augustine in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew and Irma. And we've also had the opportunity to reciprocate that across the state. Just this time, actually, I believe it was this week last year, I took a task force out to Dixie County in the Big Bend area of Florida in response to Hurricane Helene, and just sort of augmenting with their fire department and their public safety folks there in Dixie County, providing services. So it's like mobilizing local resources here from Northeast Florida, deploying into that region, and then trying to set up services, because it gives those folks an opportunity to take a break and then to go home and sort of deal with their own disaster, because they're dealing with it as well. And so that's really how the foundation came to be. Those folks went out there to offer services and then realized that there was this incredible need to help first responders that were also impacted.
How has your experience with the folks that work for you changed how you relate to somebody in a post-disaster situation, particularly another first responder, just based on what you've seen and what your team has experienced?
That's a difficult question to answer. I mean, I think that there's a lot of emotions that go into it. It is very difficult to keep a pulse on what's happening at home when you feel like you're responsible for taking care of other people. And so there is a need to, as soon as help can get there, you need to take advantage of it and really communicate to them, like, it's okay for you to go. Like, this isn't a dereliction of duty. I want you in the right mindset and headspace. Go take care of home, come back here, and because we've got days, if not weeks, of work still ahead of us.
Mm. Robin, we know that anybody that's been through a storm and had to evacuate, always, no matter what has been done damage wise, the first thing people want to do is go and check on their home. They want to go and see where they live and assess for themselves. And it really is no different for first responders, even though they're very often constrained, working around the clock at those same times.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And there's so much support from the communities surrounding the first responders as well. And that's why the equipment they have or needs to really be addressed because, as Chief Carlos would even say, I think there was an ATV is a good example that they were able to get into flooded areas or boats. Those sort of tools are so important.
And that's something that the foundation helped provide for this local fire department at ATV?
Yeah, so we've provided an ATV. We've also done boats in the Jacksonville area. And I think what's so important that we forget, we want those first responders to have the tools they need. So when they're under the stress and dealing with these unimaginable disasters, that having the tools in the right hands, it just helps them protect themselves. And also even the aid that's coming in, other departments that'll come in, they need that equipment as well.
Yeah, I mean, the large-scale disaster we mentioned that sort of started the Firehouse Foundation was Katrina. And in that situation, it was, I mean, not only was the town destroyed, but basically all of the gear that these first responders would typically use in a situation like that was also destroyed or damaged. And so initially arriving there, it was like, well, the Firehouse folks were bringing food and water and some supplies, but they quickly realized that the need was going to be just, an order of magnitude greater.
Yeah, absolutely. And the founders of Firehouse Subs and the foundation, they said it was like a bomb went off. They had never seen such devastation, and it was a game changer for them. And even though they were there and exhausted, when they came back, that was the first thing they did was just to set up the foundation. And they always say there is no department that doesn't need some kind of gear. And the first grant award was actually a used fire truck for a community in Mississippi that lost everything.
And so we mentioned that this is a big milestone that the foundation is celebrating, having reached $100 million in aid to, this is across the United States now. I mean, even though the foundation was formed and the sub restaurant was formed here locally, it has now, it includes 50 states in Canada?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's absolutely correct. So it's 100 million in both the U.S. and Canada. But we are now in the U.S. alone more than 100 million because last week we had a board meeting which allowed us to grant an additional 93 grants worth $2 million. And that's just throughout the U.S. And I know three additional grants locally. So it's really an amazing foundation. And our big thing is we just wish we didn't have to deny any. I think that's the hardest part of what we do.
Yeah. Well, Chief Avelies, what is the need that remains for most? I mean, you're on the board of the foundation now, in addition to your work in St. Augustine. Has that given you a different perspective of the overall need
Yes.
situation?
So I'm very blessed to not just sit on the board and to see this life-saving equipment get to go to departments that are in need. I've also been, the recipient of Firehouse Subs grants. And so, one of the things that we like to try to explain to folks is that when you call 911, the reality of that crew or that truck having every single piece of equipment that they could possibly need to help you in that situation is just not the reality of the world that we live in. And so, with more fiscally constrained areas, rural areas that still largely depend on volunteers, a lot of these agencies are making do with what they have. And that, especially over the last 4 or 5 years in this sort of high inflationary environment, the cost of providing those services has gone up. And so the foundation serves as a bit of a stopgap to help those departments with needs to get life-saving equipment in the hands of those first responders.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you. Congratulations. Chief Avalies, Robin Peters, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, up next, we'll talk Saturn.
Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you. Amelia Island brings all styles of jazz to the Les Demerle Amelia Island Jazz Fest, September 28th through October 5th. Celebrate swing, Latin, blues, soul, and more. Info at ameliaisland.com/jazz.
In a small Florida beach town, the storm is coming. As Atlantic Beach prepares to evacuate, a few stay behind. From debut director Alexandra Simpson, no sleep till. One night, one storm, no turning back. Join us Tuesday, September 30th at WJCT Studios. Doors open at 6:30, film at 7. Tickets at wjct.org/film.
Elon Musk's xAI has a supercomputer facility in Memphis, Tennessee. It's named Colossus, and it's powered by more than 30 methane gas turbines. Residents say Colossus is the right name for the massive pollution it's dumping into their environment.
We don't want money in exchange for our lungs or in exchange for our lives. We want clean air, we want clean water, clean soil, just like everybody else.
That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
Plastic production worldwide is expected to triple by 2060. That creates problems that are very big and very, very small. Microplastics have now been found in our food, air, water, even in our blood, bones, and organs. So what do these microplastics mean for our health, and where do we go from here? The macro concerns over microplastics, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, September is a great time not only to view Saturn, but to remember a key moment in its history. And here to tell us about it is Eddie Whistler, our resident spaceman and planetarium director at the Museum of Science and History.
Hey,
Hey,
it's so appropriate.
yeah, it's September.
Yeah, it's September. We crashed a space probe into Saturn purposefully.
That's
and,
nutty.
And we can see it in the sky this evening. If we were to go
Why?
outside.
First of all, I mean, we'll get to the dramatic fiery crash,
Yeah.
but why is it easier to view Saturn right now than it otherwise is?
It just happens to be up. It's possible that Saturn could be in a location where from Earth you're only able to see it during the daytime, which means you won't be able to see it during the daytime because, that pesky star of ours steals all of your attention. Like it really hogs the attention.
You're
It
talking
needs
about
to
the
tone it
sun
down
here.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it absent it being able to tone it down.
Yeah.
What does Saturn do to kind of get in our viewing space?
So, as we turn into the nighttime side, Saturn is somewhere out there where we can see it without having the sun in the sky. So that's requirement number one. But what you need to do tonight, if you want to go outside and see it, is to go out and just look east. And it will be it's not the brightest thing, but it is bright enough that it gets your attention and it won't twinkle. Planets don't really twinkle so much for reasons.
Reasons that are
Right.
complicated and full of science.
No, not at all, but we would need a good 30 seconds to unpack it. And we have very short 30 seconds to work with. So we can go that route if you want.
Well, I want to ask you about viewing Saturn. A lot of us think of the fancy rings, and we've got some
Yeah, yeah.
pictures of it, people watching our live stream.
Oh,
Um,
that's a real picture. How
yeah.
incredible.
So, are we able to see the rings when we're able to watch it in the night sky in the east?
So much is embedded in that question. Not with your eyes. You could fool yourself into thinking that you can see the rings,
Okay.
but you can't. Not with your eyes, but with telescopes. Boom. Saturn is the thing to see if you have telescopes, especially for a first timer, because it looks like the thing that you're expecting to see. You're like, wow, it looks like an ornament hanging in the sky that when you have a telescope or some binoculars, you can finally get some, and you're like, that's what it's supposed to look like. It actually looks like that.
So this beautiful planet with these lovely rings, why did we go crashing a spaceship into the atmosphere?
It was out of fuel. Cassini is the name of the spacecraft. We can only bring so much propellant inside of a thing that we're going to send out into space. It was there for 13 years. It took 7 years to get there, and then it was there for 13 years, studying the moons, the rings, the atmosphere, the gravitational field, the magnetic field of the planet, so much stuff, right? Had all these different instruments on it that had their own specializations. But we can't control the thing when we run out of propellant. We can't do any more maneuvers. And so then just all of a sudden, it just does what it does over the course of centuries to come and could potentially land, crash onto the surface of a moon that might even be, that might even harbor life. We don't know. There are 2 moons in particular.
You mean the concern if it doesn't burn
Yeah.
up that it lands on a planet
Boom.
or one of its moons
And contaminate it with Earth life.
ooh,
Yeah. And we don't know what the outcome is.
what
right?
Earth life would be on our spaceship?
Microbes. We go out of our way in order to sterilize these probes before they launch, but microbes are microbes and they are difficult to deal with, right?
Microbes will microbe.
And they will microbe themselves all around.
Yeah, and so obviously we don't want to be contaminating other places.
Yeah.
And so this
So real
Cassini-
quick,
yeah.
we call that, it's an objective that NASA has. It's called planetary protection.
Oh, okay.
It's spelled out, right?
Keep it clean in the universe.
Keep it clean in the universe and keep us clean from exterior. So this goes both ways.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So this thing has been out there collecting data and it is running out of fuel. And so how do we make it crash?
With the last bit of its fuel, we navigate it. But the cool thing is that now that we know that the thing is going out, NASA takes high-risk maneuvers with the thing and has several passes in the months leading up to September that bring it closer than they would ever want to get if it was just regular old
If they were going to save
operational
it.
time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. And so they get good information.
Amazing information.
And so the Cassini, rest in peace,
Yes.
brought us back a lot of good
Yes.
Saturn data.
Yeah, like for example, we have a really good sense now for how young, much younger than might have been thought before, how young the rings of Saturn are. So the current thought is, about 100 million years to 300 million years, like right in there, which is extremely youthful because it's possible for rings to be there since it had become a planet. So for billions of years. So this is a small fraction of its, for you and me, when we talk about things, a couple 100 million years, what's that between friends, right?
It's just a youthful
Yeah,
exchange.
babies.
Child's.
Yeah.
Childlike.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, I wanted to talk a little bit about planetarium being closed and if there's any pop-ups planned for Mosh, but we've just got about 5 seconds left.
Yeah, so we are moving around the community. Right now we're focused on schools, but over the course, this is the very beginning, over the course of the next couple of years, we will be popping up, whether it's with a planetarium or whether it's some other presentation, then that might be tough to say what it might be, but we plan on being around in the community.
All right. Well, Eddie Whistler, it's a delight, as always, to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's so much fun.
All right. And thank you for listening. If you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight or find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform. Join us tomorrow when we sit down with government expert Chris Hand to talk about a nearly 14-hour city council meeting voting on the budget. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.